Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Friday Live on this Friday, August the 15th, 2025. I am currently live on Facebook and YouTube. So welcome to anyone who's tuning in via Facebook and YouTube. I'll just give the feed a few minutes to filter through so people know I'm here. It is freezing. It's a freezing windy day here in Melbourne, so my internet's been a little bit dodgy this morning. I was in a session with someone early today in the US, and it was dropping in and out. So anyway, let's hope that it stays stable whilst I'm talking to you guys. We've got gale force winds around me at the moment. So anyway, I wasn't able to be here last week, so my apologies for that. Something came up at the last minute that I had to take care of. But I am here today, ready and excited to answer any questions that you have. I've had a couple of questions come through, which I will take care of, which I'll get answered today. And as always, I am here to share anything that has come up during my or any patterns, I guess, that have shown up or come up during my client work or the work with my Relatable students. So if you are listening to this or you're just tuning in, feel free to say hi. Feel free to say hi. Let me know where you're listening from. And whilst I'm doing that, I will pull up the questions for today. We've had a couple of good questions actually come through, and I want to also share how amazing the calls have been this week with my Relatable students. Like really quite I wanted to do a social media post about it, but I just haven't had time. But I did send an email to my list about it because particularly last Monday morning's call. So I run calls 2 times a week with my Relatable students. Monday morning's call, we just had the most incredible transformations being shared. And, I get really emotional when I hear the students sharing just how much has changed in their relationships, in their lives, because of what they've learned in the program. And their insights and wisdom are extraordinary. I mean, one lady, gorgeous lady from the US, shared how a 30-year relationship with her in-laws, which had always been quite difficult, where she'd always felt like the outsider, where there was a lot of tension, walking on eggshells, that kind of thing. It had always been difficult. They'd gone away on a camping trip, and she said the entire relationship had transformed because of what she's learnt in Relatable and how she's been showing up differently. That all that tension has fallen away, and it's operating on a completely different level. I mean, that just blew my mind. And I guess I want to share that because I think there are things, situations or circumstances that we put up with in our lives, or we kind of accept and think, oh, well, that's as good as it's going to get. That's just the way it is. There's nothing I can do about it. That don't have to be that way. And as you know, the quality of the relationships that we experience in our lives, and particularly with in-laws and things like that, these are people that are going to be in your life for a long, long time. When there's an opportunity for you to transform that, for it to be different, I mean, just think of the ripple effects on your own well-being, then the ease that creates with your husband or wife and children, and on and on and on it goes from there. That was just one of the stories that was shared from on Monday's call, which just blew me away. And there were 2 other really poignant, beautiful stories shared. Someone who'd experienced a lot of trauma and abuse in their life, just operating in a different way in the world, where they're no longer leading with insecurities, they're no longer leading with fear, they're no longer trying to outthink every conversation that may or may not be showing up, where there's this incredible lightness of being and emotional freedom. And I think to myself, this is the heart and soul of life, right? This is the heart and soul of the quality of our life, when we are experiencing true emotional freedom. It just transforms the entire way that we show up to anything and everything. And hey, good morning, Michelle. Good morning from Queensland. I hope it's nice and warm for you there, because yeah, Melbourne is freezing right now, but that's okay. It is the middle of winter, and I'm glad. We need the rain. We need all of those things. So, but hey, Michelle, thanks for saying hi. And hey, Jackie, you're missing the calls. Yeah, they are. They're really cool. This is why some of the students have been in Relatable for 3 and 4 years, because of those calls, because of the conversations that we have, because of what is shared. I mean, they are profound, and they are one of those things that become a regular part of our lives, and a regular part of our community. So thanks for saying hi, guys. And if there's anyone else who wants to say hi, if you've got a question that you'd like me to answer, please feel free to pop it in the comments below, and I will do my absolute best to answer it. So just coming to a couple of the questions that have come through here. Where are they? All right. So this is a question that just came through this week, actually, and I want to answer it because I've had questions like this come through in the past, and I've actually had, believe it or not, a couple of other questions along a similar vein come through with this. So I thought this would be an important question to answer. So the question is, hi Fiona, I've just learned that my husband of 23 years has come out, and to make matters worse, I now know that he's been seeing a guy who I can't tolerate for at least 2 years, probably more. I knew in my gut something was so very wrong with him and should have seen the signs. He made my skin crawl, and I'm presuming when she means something wrong with him, she's talking about the guy that she's found out her husband has been seeing. And I kept putting it down to numerous lies my husband kept making when concerning him. I kept pushing it down as I couldn't cope. I feel so stupid that it was there in front of me all along. How can I move past the deceit? I married my husband as his honesty was just one of his qualities. It's almost like it's worse than learning he's gay, which probably sounds crazy in itself. He's literally a different person. How much should my 16 and 14-year-old daughters know? I know they're going to be devastated. First of all, I'm so sorry, honey. I really am. That must be just devastating. I can't even imagine that, something like this just eats away at the foundations of the things that you've built your life on, right? And I can only imagine it feels like all the foundations or the rugs being pulled out from under you in terms of the husband that you thought that you knew, the life that you thought you'd built together, conversations, decisions, dreams, all of that has just been completely, I guess, obliterated by your husband coming out. I can only imagine that, and in 23 years of marriage, that's a long time to spend your life with someone and not know such an enormous aspect of them. And all I can say to you is I can only imagine that, and if I'm just going to flip this to your husband just for a second, and I'm only doing that because the only way we can move past anything like deceit, like anything really, is the pathway to moving past anything where we've been hurt, where we feel that our lives have been turned upside down, when we're dealing with an enormous amount of upheaval and change, where we can't understand something. The only pathway through that is the pathway of understanding. Because without understanding, without a pathway of understanding, what we're left with is anger, fear, upset, a feeling of feeling wronged, that life is unfair. And those feelings, those emotions, that thinking, that will eat away at you, right? Because that's the stuff that goes round and round and round in your head. Hey, Lynn, thanks for saying hi from Perth. Lovely. Oh, no, I hope the sun's shining for you in Perth. Good morning, Nick. Oh, love to you too, honey. Love to you from Sydney. Good morning, good morning. And beautiful Lee. Hey, Lee. Hi, darling. Hello, hello. There's the only pathway through anything is the pathway of understanding. Because when we have understanding, our ego, our intellectual mind, our personal thinking starts to calm. Because now it's like, oh, okay, I hadn't thought of it that way. Oh, I hadn't seen it this way. Because the only way to move through something, and really when you're saying, how do I move through the deceit? How do I get to a better feeling about this, right? Where I don't feel so traumatized, so all of those things. How do I move through that? And you can apply this to anything. Like if there's a situation in your life where you are feeling that way, the only pathway forward is the pathway of understanding. And so I can only imagine if you've been married to this man for 23 years and he's just come out, he has been sitting with that secret within himself that he's been fighting with, that battle. There's a battle that he's been experiencing, and I'd say much longer than 23 years, probably his entire life, where he has felt that urge, that nudge, the nudge of wisdom pointing him to something, and he's been too terrified to face it. And, I was just having this conversation with a new client this morning that, there's a way of moving through life where, for many of us, where we are what I would call asleep at the wheel. And being asleep at the wheel means you have a knowingness of something buried deep inside you. You have a knowingness of something. You have a sense of something buried deep inside you. And you know that it's there, but your intellect, your personal thinking, your ego mind kind of overrides it all the time, because our intellect, our personal thinking, our ego mind is very loud, isn't it? Right? It's very loud. It's kind of always yelling at you and telling you what to do, or telling you what not to do, or telling you that if you do this, this will happen, and trying to convince you. The ego, intellectual, personal mind is quite loud. But the mind of wisdom, the mind of something else is much quieter, because it has nothing to prove, nothing to convince you of. But it's insistent. It's never goes away. It's like a dripping tap. And I can only imagine that your husband has been dealing with a dripping tap for a very, very, very long time. It's totally not okay that he's been lying to you. Like, I'm not trying to justify anything. Okay, I'm really not. But the reason people make decisions like that, where they're literally leading a double life, is because of that fear of facing what wisdom is pointing them to. And so, we're very good at distracting ourselves. We're very good. Human beings are the ultimate distractors, right? The ultimate distractors. And when we distract ourselves from ourselves, we're no longer tuned in or listening. And that's when we are literally asleep at the wheel. And I think one of the extraordinary, wonderful things I see through people in my Relatable program is people start to wake up. Okay, they wake up to what wisdom is pointing them to. They wake up to their own truth. They wake up to the direction of what well-being looks like for them. They wake up to that perspective that brings you emotional freedom. And often it's pointing us in a direction that is uncomfortable or difficult. But, we're here to evolve and expand and grow. We are not here to repeat. But of course, when we are frightened by the knowingness that we're being directed towards, the direction of wisdom, when we're frightened by that because there's consequences, right, we will distract ourselves. And let's face it, there's a lot in life that we can get distracted by, isn't there? We live in a world where there is just so much noise coming at us every day. It's easy to be distracted by social media, endless scrolling online. It's easy to be distracted by alcohol, by food, by drama, by busyness, right? By doing. It's easy to be distracted by all of those things. And I can only imagine that your husband has been living this life for so long that he got to a point where he couldn't live it anymore. Now, I appreciate that doesn't really change the situation for you, But I know that, and this is something my very, very good friend Anthony Breslin, who passed away, the one who created the heart for my book, this heart here for my book, and if you don't know him, as a very, very well-known Australian artist and someone who became such a dear, dear, dear friend of mine. And he passed away recently from leukemia, and he always said to me, Fiona, the way that I deal, because he was always in so much pain from the effects of living with leukemia for 12 years. He's always in so much physical pain. He'd always say to me, the way that I escape my pain is by understanding and focusing on others. That's how I escape it. That's the only place where I get an interlude, a moment of respite from that. And so the way that you move through this, and you can't force this, honey, okay? You can't force this in any way. The way that you move through this is getting to a place where you can feel compassion for your husband and yourself. Okay, compassion for you, because there'll be an aspect of you, I can only imagine, where you will be upset with yourself saying, why did I not see this? How could I have been so blind to this? How could I have lived with this man or not knowing this? There'll be an aspect of yourself. So you need to find compassion for yourself, and you need to find compassion for him at some point in your own time, not forcing it. There's no shoulds here, but the pathway forward is the pathway of understanding, which leads to compassion, which leads to kindness, the releasing of anger, pain, fear, and all of that stuff. But, these are also things that happen in their own time, and you need to be patient with that. It's not something you can override. It's not something that you can force. So many of us do not understand the way our minds work, and we try to override something that we just don't have capacity for, and we don't have the business to even be trying to do. This is such an enormous misunderstanding out there about our psychology, and that misunderstanding is perpetuated by the way therapy is set up, by the way personal development is positioned, that this is something that you have more control over than you actually do. And so it ends up having us working against ourselves rather than with it. Now, in terms of your girls at the ages of 14 and 16, I mean, you know your children better than I do, but at that age, they deserve the truth. They deserve the truth. And hiding the truth from them will cause more pain than not. And at that age, they're old enough to understand, and they're old enough to, I'm not saying it's not going to be painful or difficult for them, but I think it's something that you can talk about when you're ready. It doesn't have to be dealt with straight away, I'm guessing. I don't know your situation, but they absolutely deserve to know the truth. And I would try and share it with them without having too much anger at their father. And the reason I say that is because you have to understand that they are a part of him. And because they are a part of their father, any anger and upset that you have towards their father that you share with them is something that they will feel quite personal, because he is a part of them, just like you are a part of them. So whatever you can do is to share information in a factual way without the huge emotional waves and all of those sorts of things with your children. If you can get to a point where you can do that, that's very, very, very important. And if you need a little bit of space and time to process and do that, then give yourself that space and time. Anyway, I hope that helps. Thank you so much for asking the question, and sending you so much love and understanding as you move through this. One thing I will say is that, if you want support, if you want to learn an understanding that will take that everything that I've shared to a whole other level, this is everything that we look at inside of Relatable. Inside of my program Relatable, this is everything that we look at. People come into Relatable dealing with situations that they consider to be so painful, so terrifying, so difficult, whether it be the breakdown of a family unit, whether it be an illness, a diagnosis they've received, whether it be on so many levels, a financial situation. And through the understanding that they learn in Relatable, they discover an aspect of themselves that enables them to meet that experience in a completely different way, in a way that they never knew was possible. And, there is an aspect in all of us that is untouchable. I promise you that there is. There's an aspect inside everybody that is untouchable. And when we access that part of ourselves, and everybody has this, you see life in a completely different way. You meet life in a completely different way. You experience life in a completely different way. And you get to a point or a state of knowing that no matter what happens out here, I know I will be okay. Now, I want you to imagine for a moment what your life would be like if you truly know that to the depths of your being. Like if you truly knew that without any doubt, what would be different for you in your life? How would you show up to your life differently? What would you do differently if you had that knowing? And, and this is the kind of thing that my students share and inside of the program on our live calls. And like I said, last Monday's call was a doozy for that. Some incredible stories. Some of those students are on the feed right now. You know who I'm talking about. They were on that call sharing their stories. And, it's just extraordinary. You see the changes in someone's entire physicality, in the way they hold themselves, their energy, their face. Like it's just, you see this lightness in people when they're putting stuff down, they're putting all of the fear and the overwhelm and all of that stuff, and they get to show up and live life the way they've wanted to on their terms, living from their truth. When you start doing that, your entire energy field changes, right? And we are energetic beings. So when your energy field changes, what you attract, what you magnetize, what you create changes with it. And these are the things that we don't see when we are asleep at the wheel of our lives. And I can tell you right now, people who are asleep at the wheel find that navigating their relationships, navigating their lives so much harder, so much more exhausting than people who do not. Truth wave energy. Hello. You just popped up in my feed. Must be something I need to hear. Yeah, well, there's no accidents in life, is there? Well, I certainly believe that. Nice to hear from you. Thanks for saying hi. Appreciate it. Hey, Graham. Big wave back to you. Penny, live but late. All good, Penny, honey. Hello, Craig. Nice to see you. Big wave back. Penny, this understanding is an absolute life changer. Yes, Penny is in my Relatable program, and Penny is one of the students who shared what's changed for her on Monday's call. Yep, I'm so much lighter, both mentally and physically. Jody, love to you, darling. Life is so much sweeter. Jody is also in my Relatable program. And Lee Daniel. Hello, darling. The lightness is indescribable. It feels like existing in an entirely different place within yourself. Yeah. So you're hearing it straight from the horse's mouth, guys. The date on your stream threw me off, Truth Wave. Then I realized, yeah, I'm in Australia. So I'm guessing you are in the Northern Hemisphere. I'm in the Southern. So yes, we are a day ahead of you. So I know that will throw you off. I know the only the only country ahead of Australia is New Zealand by 2 or 3 hours. And everyone else is behind us. So yes, I know that does throw things off, especially when I'm talking about Friday, Central US, Oklahoma. Yeah, that's right. I've actually got I've got a couple of students in my Relatable program from Oklahoma. All right. Well, thanks for saying hi. Appreciate it. So I just wanted to check in with you guys. Hey, Leanne. Hi. Hi, Fee. I'm late too. Always so welcome, honey. You know that. You're always so welcome. So just wanted to check in for those of you that were listening to what I just shared. Does that make sense to you? Have you got any questions about that? Can you see the links between the things that I was talking about and what that means for the state of your relationships, how you relate to others? And, I think the other thing is you've got to understand when it comes to our relationships, it's not just how we relate to others, it's how we relate to ourselves, and it's how we relate to life. All of this determines the type of energy and feeling we get to live in. And the energy and feeling that you live in determines the quality of your entire life. Your entire life. And so having these three relationships, one you have with yourself, with life, and with others, when that is transformed, what you get to, the energy you get to live in, what you get to generate, create, the feeling you're in is, you have to experience it to understand what I'm saying. And I know that Penny, Jody, and Lee, that's exactly what they're referring to when they're saying life is so much sweeter. It feels, the lightness is indescribable. And Penny's saying I'm lighter both mentally and physically. They are experiencing that. But you can't describe this. It has to be something that you experience. And then you're like, I know exactly what that is. Okay. I know we are communicating through time. I agree with that truth wave energy. You know, I think this is where moments like this, where you can be, and I know Jody's in Canada, in the US, and I know Lee is in Canada. Penny's in, Penny and Leanne are in Australia. So is Craig. So is Graham. But, you know, it's the fact that we can be in this exact same moment in time, even though you are technically, you know, 18 hours or something behind us. The fact that we can be in this exact same moment in time tells you that time is not a linear. It's not a linear thing, is it? It's impossible, because if it was linear, we would always be 18 hours ahead, and we would never be able to catch up like we are in this moment in time. So cool. Oh, hi, Catherine. You're here too. Keep spreading that good energy, Fee. Thank you, honey. That's what it's all about, right? That's what it's all about. Okay, so if anyone's got any questions, or you're not sure, or you want me to clarify anything that I've just shared, please feel free to do so in the comments. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you might have. And if you want to find out more about my Relatable program, I'll put the link to that here, because some of you always ask me about that as well. Hi, Rick. Live from the balcony on the Gold Coast. Awesome. Hello, Rick. Thanks for saying hi. So appreciate that. Lee, it's mind-blowing when you actually look at it that way. Yeah, it really is, isn't it? It's a whole different way of viewing life, and a whole different way of being able to move through the challenges that we all come across, right? The difficulties that we all face from time to time, because that's just a natural, normal part of the human experience. But one of the reasons why I love relationships so much, I'm so passionate about it, is because to me, this is where we get the opportunity to evolve the most. It's also where we can end up repeating the most, right? And, nothing has you grow more than your relationships, because they, in order to grow inside of your relationships, you have to know how to get over yourself. And you have to know how to get over yourself, not just once or twice, multiple times, sometimes multiple times daily. You need to be able to navigate your emotions so that you are not a slave to your own emotional reactivity. And so many people are. You know, you have to understand, whatever you get triggered by in life will always limit your experience of something. Okay? Whatever you get triggered by in life will always limit your experience of something. And, we are here to have as many experiences as possible. And we are here to have expansive, rich experiences. That's what we're here for. And so every time you get triggered, that limits, that's the end of your capacity to have that experience. And so many of us get triggered in our relationships, right? Especially the ones where we have the most emotional skin in the game. Okay, the ones where we have the most emotional skin in the game are the ones that we get triggered by the most, but they also are the ones that provide the greatest capacity to evolve, grow, and expand. And I'm telling you that evolving, growing, and expanding is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me, and is something that just continues. That's a never-ending thing, and it feels incredible, absolutely incredible. Liana, hi, Liana. Nice to hear from you. Hi, Fiona. This program is a game changer. Oh, thank you, honey. Thank you so much. Liana's in Canada. So nice to see you, honey. I hope everything's going well with the house move and with you and Mark. I really hope that's all going smoothly. Rick tried to send a photo, but it didn't happen. Beautiful day here. Awesome. Of course it is on the Gold Coast in Queensland. So Rick is in North Australia. It's always warmer and sunnier and more consistently gorgeous on the Gold Coast. That's why they call it the Gold Coast, right? It's golden sunshine, golden sunshine reflecting off beaches there. So that's awesome. So yeah, so it's like, I think for so many people, we don't understand what is on offer in terms of how good we can feel. We just don't have any appreciation of that. And like I said, it is, and when I say good, how good you can feel, I'm not talking about having a positive mindset, right? This goes way beyond that perspective, right? It's not about a positive mindset. How good you can feel, I'm talking about in terms of depth of presence. I'm talking in terms of groundedness. I'm talking in terms of peace. I'm talking in terms of calm, of clarity, of curiosity, of playfulness, of lightness. That's what I'm talking about. Right? That feeling, and I say this again and again, is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. And it is something that I cultivate and I'm very protective of. Very protective. Because living from that feeling is a completely different way to move through life than living in the feeling I was living in before, which was defensiveness, which was fear, which was needing to prove that I'm right, which was insecurity. And like, not every minute of every day, obviously, but when I got triggered emotionally, that's where I would go. And there is something so fantastic about knowing that I've got all this choice around that now that I never had, that I don't need to go there. Like that in fact, going there doesn't even really make sense to me. I'm no longer limited by what I'm triggered by. And that opens up a whole new world of possibility. And this is a fantastic thing for relationships. Absolutely fantastic. Jody, I never would have believed it's possible if I hadn't experienced all that for myself. I'm in awe of what can happen when you learn how you can create and show up differently to life. Yeah. Oh, thank you for sharing that, honey. I so appreciate you so much. So much. Okay. Now, I've just got time to answer one more question. And there's a few questions here, so that's why I'm like, okay, I'm just trying to go from the I'm trying to go with the most recent one. So, all right. Okay. Here's one that I think this is quite important. Hi, Fiona. Thank you so much for your Friday lives. I know you mentioned recently that you were considering running them less often. Please don't. I listen every single week and I find them so beneficial for me, and I'm seeing that ripple out into my family. Wow. Oh, that's lovely. Okay, cool. Thank you so much for saying that. I wondered if you could help me with something. I keep noticing how the smallest things my partner says or does can seem so, like, suddenly feel so huge. Why does this happen? Great question. And I'm sure many people can relate to that, right? It's sometimes you can find that you're having the biggest arguments or differences over this tiny thing, like who left a wet towel on the floor, or who didn't put the toilet seat down, or who someone forgot to buy milk, like things that you look back on and go, this is really not that big a deal. So one of the things that you have to understand is, number one, when goodwill is low between people, when goodwill is low, and goodwill is something we talk about a lot in Relatable. It's very, very important. I also talk about goodwill in my book, Funny Little Human, which you can purchase on Amazon. And also, if you have purchased a copy of my book and you have left me a review on Amazon, I have a free meditation I created that goes with this book, and I will send it out to you for free. Just send us an email with a screenshot of your review and we'll send that out to you. But when goodwill is low, you have to understand people become very protective of themselves. Okay, they become very protective of themselves. And when we become very protective of ourselves, we kind of double down on what we believe is right or true. We double down on our thinking, on our opinions, on everything. We double down because we're in self-protection mode. And so when we double down, we are more defensive. We listen through a lens of adversarialness, which is I represent me and I represent me. And so we start looking at things, and this is where the competition also shows up in a relationship where you feel like you're competing with each other. And an example of feeling like you're competing with your partner might be, I've cooked dinner the last 2 nights. Can you cook dinner? Can you cook dinner tonight, for example? And they might say, yeah, okay, maybe you cooked it the last 2 nights, but I have gone shopping for the last 10 days. You haven't even set foot in a supermarket. Doesn't that count for something? Why do I have to cook it tonight? I cooked it 3 nights last week, right? So you're now competing over who's done what. Can you hear that? That's two people where I represent me and I represent me. And when we are in what I call me mode, me, there's no we. The we comes when someone says, hey, for example, this is when you know you're in we mode, there might be one person saying, hey, I've cooked dinner the last 2 nights. Can you cook dinner tonight? And this person then says, yeah, I really appreciate the fact that you've cooked dinner, and I know that's not easy and you've worked really hard. I don't really feel like cooking dinner tonight. How do you feel about getting takeaway? So you're not in competition mode. You've acknowledged the other person, and you're now trying to find a solution that works for the two of you. Can you see that that's the we mode, right? Now this starts to fall away when goodwill is low. This falls away. All right. And so as that falls away, the small stuff looks bigger. It looks bigger because it kind of builds up, doesn't it? Oh, God, I can't believe that. I've got to pick up the towel again. Oh, my God, he does this every time. He leaves muddy footprints on the floor. How many times have I told him to leave his boots by the front door? Oh, that's typical. Oh, my goodness, the post office box is overflowing. Yep, I'll just get it. I'm the only one who does it. So we start building this stuff up. And so from there, we are more defensive. We're doubling down. We're more self-righteous. And that's when the small things start to look huge. Okay, so that's one reason why that starts to happen. It's because goodwill has dropped. There isn't any we. You've got two me's, and each person has made it very clear that I represent me and I represent me. Now, when you get to a point where that's what's there is I represent me, I represent me, when you get to that point, people stop caring, thinking about the other person. Generosity. So, maybe another example of that might be, maybe you would wake up in the morning and your partner would always be someone who would make you a coffee or a cup of tea, and you realize that hasn't happened for weeks or days or months because they are in I represent me mode, right? And I'm not saying that's their fault. That's the state your relationship is in. If your relationship is in that state, please do something about it. Don't let that go on for too long, because that eats away at connection. It eats away at everything. And it's an awful place to live your life from. Awful. Like, it makes no sense to me. Why would you want to live your life like that? And this is when people start avoiding one another because it doesn't feel good, right? They spend more time at work, or they spend more time exercising, or they come home and they're just on their phone. They're not engaging. They're not present. Like, to me, that makes no sense. Why would you want to live like that? Now, another reason why things can look bigger than they are can also have a lot to do with your own fluctuating state of mind, right? And so understanding state of mind, understanding how that fluctuates is so important. And again, it is the very first thing that I teach in Relatable, okay? Because this is something people do not understand. And so when you don't know how to navigate that, we get very confused. And when we're very confused and we don't have clarity, this is when our emotional intelligence falls through the floor and we do and say things that we later regret, right? Which then add more to the lack of goodwill and generosity and all of those things that show up in our relationships. So I hope that answers that question. That again, that type of question is a question I get asked a lot. And it's those small things that can completely destroy a relationship. All right. So I hope that really helps and gives you a bit more clarity around that. So guys, if you do have a question you want me to answer, please send it through to hello@fionalukis.com.au and I will absolutely answer it for you on one of my next upcoming Friday lives. You can find me every Friday at 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, and which is around 8 p.m. Eastern the day before. Every Friday on Facebook and YouTube. So thank you all so much for your wonderful comments. Thank you so much, Truth Wave Energy. Love that name. You're so welcome. And if anyone wants to know about Relatable, I've posted the link in the comments here. You're very welcome to check it out. I'll post them again, join our Relatable family where we look at this in a much deeper level, and you can join our amazing live calls. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you guys next week. Have a great weekend. Take care. Ciao.